Hey guys, it's Mr. Mini Painter, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how I painted Katana from the Batman Gotham City Chronicles game by Monolith. So, wielding her mystical blade, Soultaker, Katana brings a sharp and disciplined presence to the tabletop, and her miniature combines elegant armor, clean lines, and a striking color contrast, making her both a rewarding and dynamic model to paint. Now, I'm going to take you step by step through the process of covering priming, base color, shading, and highlights, with extra focus on balancing the crisp whites, the deep blacks, and those bold red accents that really define her look. We'll also touch on techniques for painting her sword in a way that reflects its supernatural importance. So, with this being said, get your paints ready. It's time to bring Katana's precision and power to your Gotham collection. So I primed Katana in a black primer. Since it's the base color of the miniature, it's the easiest color to start from. I really love the pose on this mini. She's really fearsome looking. Now we're going to start with those blacks, and the first color we're using is Ashen Gray, which is a nice dark gray, and with which we're going to accentuate all the muscles in this miniature. You can see me kind of using a striping kind of method in which I'm blocking out the main colors, after which I am thinning down my paint and kind of blending the black and grays together. And the way I'm doing this is that you pull the paint towards the brightest part. And what I mean by this is that you first block out the paint, as I told you before, and then you kind of pull the paint from the dark area to the brighter area. And this way you get a nice transition from dark to brighter, and you can do this with every sequential highlight. Now, this is our first result, looking quite nice already. There is a lot of detail in this mini on the back and front. And we're going to do the same process over again, but with a brighter gray. And for this I'm using Administratum Gray. And we're decreasing the area of where we paint. So this way we build up the transition from dark, and black in this case, to bright. And this is going to give us a beautiful end result with a gradient from black to bright gray. Again, I'm kind of blocking out the brightest parts, so to say, and you get these beautiful transitions. Again, by thinning down your paint and pulling the paint towards the brightest part, you get these gradients like this. You can do it as many times as you want to make it more fluent. Now with pure Administratum Gray, I'm painting the armor on the gloves, the shoulder plate, and the bandana on her head. Now I'm going to make that brighter further along the process, but for now it's a good base tone to start from. I'm trying to leave the black in the eyes with the bandana black. We're gonna paint in a pupil later on, but it's nice to have a dark edge around it, so to really make those eyes stand out from the rest. So try and be careful there, otherwise we're gonna color it in with black afterwards, so that's not a big deal. So the shoulder pad over here, which is a nice unique armor part for Katana. Now we're going to continue on the eyes, as I told you before, and I'm trying to paint in a white pupil with a fine tipped brush and leaving some black edge around it. Next, I'm painting in a tiny pupil. It's those tiny details that really make this miniature stand out. All of the miniatures actually, and I'm always trying to pay attention to it, but it's also the point that make or break your mini. If it fails, it looks ridiculous, right? So with some gray sear, I'm going over all the previously painted gray armor parts. So the bandana as well, the shoulder pad, and the armor around her wrist, her right wrist. I'm using pure gray sear to highlight that previously painted part. You can leave some of those dark areas in between if you want. Create some extra definition there. And next we're going to wash all that with Apothecary White. Now you can use Null Oil at this point, but I like the Apothecary White because it's a bit more subtle. So if you're using Null Oil, make sure to thin that down quite a bit, because I don't want it to be black, I want it to have some shades. Then some corn red on the boots, the armor, the shoulder armor in this case, it has some red dots on the details there. And there is an elbow patch on the back of her right arm, which I also painted with this black. And don't forget her gloves and the red dot on her bandana. Once done, you should have something looking like this. As you can see, I left some of the black in the boots shining through. It gives a more cartoony look. So as our first highlight stage, we're going to use Evil Sun's Scarlet for every red we painted before. I'm focusing on the edges, the size of the boots, the parts that would catch the most light, and leave those shaded areas as they are, because the previous corn red is more than enough there. This Evil Sun's is nice and bright, so it gives, it really makes the red pop out. Doing the same on the top of the gloves, the top of the shoulder, or the elbow pad, I mean. So add some shine here and there. We're gonna take it one step further than this. And for that I'm using Wild Rider Red, an even brighter version of red, and just picking out tinier details. So that way again you get a nice transition in your reds. Then there is a tiny piece of face showing beneath her mask. And I'm using some Cadian flesh tone to start off quite bright to paint that. If you're able, try and leave a tiny black line between the mask and the face. It really defines both colors and separates them. I'm highlighting the skin with Kislev flesh. Thin down your paint just a little bit and kind of blend it with the previous color. Focusing on the raised parts. So if you want to add some sharpness, for example, follow the cheek line, the jaw line, the tip of the nose, of course, to add that extra detail to the face. Now with some corn red, I'm adding some lipstick to her. Because it's just such a tiny part of face showing, it's nice to add some details here. So I made her lips a little bit red. Next I'm painting the hair with Eshin Grey. I'm carefully picking out some strands of hair. I'm focusing mainly on the top of her head, following some of those hairs down. This is a tricky part always, because you do not want it to be too bright. She has black hair, but you want some details in it. And the only way to do it is to pick out some with some extra color. So hold your brush sideways like this is an easy way to pick out some of those hairs. So the hair is going down vertically, hold your brush horizontally and brush up and down it very, very carefully with as little paint as possible, kind of like dry brushing. We're doing the same with the Administratum Grey, but focusing only on the top of the head and some front hairs. So this is an extra highlight to add some shine to the hair. And I'm just picking out some of those hairs to create the illusion of a reflection. And again, holding your brush sideways really helps in this process. Then the katana itself is left. Now for that I'm using lead belcher. I'm just going with a traditional metal look. I'm doing the blade and the pommel. Some details over here. Just give it a silvery look. I'm leaving the hilt of the blade nice and black. We can add some details to that later if you want. In the meanwhile, while we let this blade dry, I'm painting the base with Mechanicus Standard Grey. The bases on these miniatures are quite boring actually. They're all exactly the same, it's just some pavement or street they're standing on. So maybe in a later stage I'm gonna add some extra props there, or well, you can go nuts of course if you want. So for the paint tutorials I'm only focusing on what's there, and maybe in some later tutorials I will make some I will give you some ideas for adding some detail to this. Once your base is dry, I'm washing it with some null oil, and I went quite heavy on it, so to really make those cracks pop out. Because there's very little detail in the base itself, we have to make something of it ourselves. Whilst doing this, I'm also using the null oil on the blade. So create some shades there. And make sure to let that dry as well. And then we're going to add some detail to the blade, some sharpness with Stormhost Silver. So I'm focusing on the very edge of the blade, the tip of course, and try and give it a sharp look by a very, very thin line of this silver. So the sharp edge on this side. And what you can do to increase the illusion of sharpness is add some lines like this, very tiny lines next to each other to give it some extra sharpness. There's some detailed look here, just pull some lines there. It looks like it's used as well. Final step, some Administratum Grey or Grey Seer, a bright grey, and add some dry brush or stipple effect to the base to kind of push away the null oil we used before, leaving the black lines as they are and giving it an overall brighter look. And here's our final result on Katana. I really love how she turned out. Even though it's just a few colors, it's a beautiful end result, and we really nailed those muscles and blacks and reds. So I hope this guide was of any help to you guys, and if it was, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you, and consider subscribing to the channel as I'll be making a lot more videos like this, and I will be posting every week. So I hope to see you in one of my next ones. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye!